Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Wednesday. It is hump day, and I am back. Still a little coffee from that post-nasal crap, but I am back. So anyways, it's been a while. I think the last time all we did were oracles, right? Because I couldn't get my brain to work. My brain was just like, nope, not cooperating with you. So anyways, that being said, I do have a subject today, but I'm going to wait for a few people to come on because, just the usual. But, the usual. But, I was just thinking, oh yeah. Look, this card has just been sitting here for about a week and a half now. And it just says, are you willing? Am I willing? So I don't know if you're willing, but I'm willing. Whatever the universe is ready to bring us, whatever the heavens are ready to bring us, let's do this. But good morning, Muddy. So the subject I want to talk about, it's a little bit different. And so on Friday, Cousin Jeannie's dad, Uncle Gene, passed away. On Sunday, my friend in England, her father passed away. And, you see the outpouring, right, of all the condolences and all of the things, and then also over the weekend, a baseball player from one of my favorite teams, he was retired. He was only about 6 months older than me. He died of a heart attack. And so, it starts making you think about life, right? You're just kind of like, wow, this dude is only 6 months older than me, and now he's just gone. And then, Uncle Gene's gone, and my friend's dad is gone, and, may they all rest in peace, in comfort and peace. But I wanted to talk about a different kind of grief, because I think, excuse me, I think it's a grief that goes extremely overlooked. I do have some stats here that I want to talk about first. But this is going to be about grief, and I mean no disrespect to all the people that have passed. Because circling back to what I was saying, sorry, my brain is still rebraining again, so it's still kind of gathering all the brain cells that are normally in there, after I coughed them all out over the last couple of weeks. Oh, thank you, Sammy. Yeah, I know. It's just a lot happening. And it was sad because it wasn't, expected. It was just kind of like over the last month, something happened. There was an accident and then poof. So yeah, it was a slow, not a slow progression, but a quick progression. So anyways, so the reason I brought them up though is because it started making me think, because I also have a friend in England who, while they were on vacation, their ride or die was getting sick, and nobody wanted to tell him until he came home. His ride or die been with him for 15 years. Just the videos I've seen on his new TikTok page called The Grieving Gardener is just, it's overwhelming. It's beautiful. It's bittersweet. And it was his puppy. And, he said to me, and I asked him for permission to share all this. He said to me that she looked me in the eyes, and she was telling me she was ready, but I wasn't ready. And I get that, and I think one of the problems we have is that, you see all these condolences on the people that, well, not people, but on the people that have passed away. But you never see the condolences, or a lot of them, for people who have lost a fur baby or a pet baby, because not always fur, right? Sometimes they can be, they could be amphibious, they could be lizards, they could be whatever, they could be fish. And we get attached because you're taking care of these things their entire life, right? And they depend on you, and and it's kind of a give and take. You do all these things for them, and they show you affection and love and companionship and all those things. And I desperately miss my cat. But, I Yes, I FaceTime with her. Thank goodness sibling understands, because otherwise they'd be like, what? But there are a lot of people in this world that when you lose your fur baby, they're just kind of like, well, you can get another one, or what's the big deal, or you knew they wouldn't live that long. It doesn't matter if you know how long they're going to live, okay? They become a part of your life. And so I want to talk about that today, because I want to talk about how we need to normalize when we lose somebody that isn't a person, that isn't a job, that isn't, a relationship, because we do grieve all those things. We grieve death. We grieve the loss of something. We grieve, hell, I grieved over my car, my PT Cruiser, because I had a lot of fun in that car, but it was like, it was time. And it was just kind of like, oh, and I miss that car. I miss that car a lot. But for some people that might seem silly, but there were a lot of memories attached to that car, especially with Mom and Sissy Joe. So, it was kind of like, it was hard. It was hard to let that go. But we grieve all kinds of different things. And people will say, oh yeah, I'm so sorry about your job. But there will be a new one out there. And you think, yeah, there will be a better one out there for me. There'll be something out there for me. Or, when you lose a relationship, oh yeah, maybe there'll be someone else better out there for me. But you can't really say that to a person who's lost a pet. You wouldn't say that to a person who's lost a family member. Oh, well, you still have another parent, or you still have siblings, or you still have cousins. No, you wouldn't. Some people do, though. I admit that. Some people do say that. And it's just kind of like, what on earth is wrong with you? But the thing is, here's some stats that I found. So pet losses cause significant unrecognized grief, with about 7.5% showing symptoms of PGD, or prolonged grief disorder. The grief intensity, 93% of people felt heartbroken or deeply sad. And then the emotional impact, and the last one is the one I want to focus on. The emotional impact, 60% experienced guilt, 55% felt lonely, and 57% out of 100% felt they had to hide their grief. And to that I wrote, just in case I forgot, and that is what I want to talk about. We need to normalize grief when it comes to the pet babies, not be cruel or rude when someone shares their heartbreak with someone who doesn't understand. Because like I was saying, you see the comments, like when a pet passes away, and you see all the people commenting on it that own pets. And then you'll see other people just like heart it or do the little care emoji on Facebook, who probably don't or never had that relationship with a pet. And I know it seems silly to talk about this, but it's not, because I can't tell you how many times, I post things and then like, well, it was just fill in the pet baby. And it's like, and then you just feel like you don't want to talk to those people about it anymore because they're not understanding your grief. Over the last 25 years, I have been very honored to be, a mom, whether to so many kitties, whether it was the two that just kind of adopted me when sibling and I first became roommates, or the ones that we adopted when we moved into Canterbury. And, and of course I called them a play on Chaucer's poem. I called them the Canterbury Tales, but with Tails. And it's just me, I try to be clever, but they've always been the Canterbury Tales, no matter how many come and go. And we've had a few go, because they get older, or, Lucas had a congenital heart defect, and or acute, I don't know what it is. He had a heart attack basically, and he faded over a couple of days, and that was brutal, because this cat was probably, even since then, the one with the most personality, the most friendliest cat. He was like a dog in a cat body. Okay, that's the only way I can explain it. And and it was just so devastating because he was only 5 years old. And this was the cat that, I was able to take a picture of him. It's like he just knew your soul, And I remember I was laying on the floor at Christmas trying to get a picture of him, and he didn't move until I said, okay, we're done. And I got up and he walked away. He'd let you hold him. He'd let you carry him. Like a baby. And he was just, And it's not to take away from the other kitties because they're all wonderful in their own ways, and my girl lets me pick her up. I mean, there's a time limit on how long I can hold her, but as for Lucas, though, he was a rag doll. He was part rag doll. So, they go limp when you pick them up. But yeah, so even Muddy says most of us lose our unconditional love when we lose our pet. And exactly. I mean, they're not going to judge you. People say that cats judge you and that they're mean and they're stupid. No, you know what? They're not. They're human, basically. Most people don't walk up to people and just trust them. Okay? A cat will make you learn how to trust them. They have to earn your trust. And that's why they can feel a little standoffish sometimes. And even my cousin was telling me about her sister's cat. And she's like, yeah, this cat never liked me and blah, blah, blah. But the more time I spent over there, now he's laying on my chest. And I said, that's a sign of affection when they lay on their chest. Because they're showing you they trust you. And they're being vulnerable with you. But I just, like I said, it's not to take away from the humans that we lose in our lives. Because that is very impactful. That really hurts. I mean, these are our people that we're losing. But I want to normalize when we lose a pet to the same degree of grief as when we lose a family member or a friend. Because this is something that you bring in a lot of times when they're just babies. And you raise them. And you take care of them. And they trust you for their entire life. And I think in the back of our heads, we all know that this isn't going to last forever because, they're pets and pets don't generally have a long lifespan unless you're that specialized bird like a parrot or a cockatoo or a turtle or a tortoise, right? Who live basically forever. But some of the only two animals are in the animal kingdom that you can actually will to your descendants, because they have the potential of living that long. But it just had me thinking, and it had me thinking about, all the babies that I've had to let go over the years. And it is painful. It is hurtful. I became a cat mom for the first time in 2004, and my baby passed away in 2018. And it's still, because she was my first one. She was my first one. She's the one I picked out. She's the one that, basically attached herself to me. And she was so sick at the beginning that I wasn't even sure if she would make it through. But I mean, look, 8 years later, and it's still emotional because I remember I took a half day from work. I just needed a self-care day. It was December 12th. And I just needed a self-care day. I went to Disneyland because I have a pass. And then all of a sudden I get a call from older sibling. She's like, you need to come home. And then we ended up taking Riley to the vet, and I had to let her go. And I think one of the reasons it affects me still, even all this time later, is because I never grew up with pets. I mean, the closest I had to a pet was a fish. And when they died, I buried them in the plant in the bathroom with headstones because I was so devastated. And I felt so guilty because I think I over-chlorinated their tank. But out of my paranoia that they wouldn't be able to breathe. But I was still young. I was a teenager, so old enough to know better, but still young. And but yeah, and every fur baby we've had to let go over, every Canterbury tail we've had to let go. Every pet older sibling has had to let go because she always had dogs up until then, and horse. And so I think about these things, and I think about how people just kind of dismiss it when some people lose their pets, when some people lose their babies. And I'm not just talking about people who don't have kids, because yeah, when you don't have kids, these are your kids. These are your babies. But even if you have children, these are still your babies. These are still a part of your family. They're your children. Baby sibling recently had a scare with Miss Minnie, and I love Minnie. She is a 90-something pound boxer mastiff who thinks she's a lap dog, and that's my girl. That is my girl. I love her so much. And I remember a couple years ago, the first time she was really allowed on the couch. And she was, you know, like, Marie was like, I'm so sorry, because she's crawling all over on me, trying to get comfortable. I mean, it's basically like having Scooby-Doo lay in your lap, okay? But I didn't care. I didn't care. And, you know, she was heavy, but it was just, there was so much love there. And the fact that they want to sit with you, because, I mean, you've seen it. If an animal doesn't trust you, they'll either hiss at you, growl, or walk away. So to have this big girl just, like, you know, show me her love by sitting on me, by just being a big lap dog, was just, you know, it wasn't like, oh my God, why is she doing this? It's like, no, I just feel all this love. It really is, like Sammy said, it's unconditional love. And I mean, I feel for my friend. I mean, the devastation that he is feeling after losing, you know, his girl. It's heartbreaking, because I only met him a few years ago, and we've become really good friends since then. We call her like nerd siblings. You know, I told him, I said, you're like the nerdy younger brother I never had, because there's so many things we have in common. But he always thought, I got to go take Poppy out for a walk now, and I'll talk to you guys later, and blah, blah, blah. Because we had a little kind of group chat with another friend of ours, which is kind of how we met. So, you know, and it's just like, I have to go, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and it's like, okay. And, you know, it's like, oh, Poppy and I went out for a walk today, and I got these pictures, because we're like picture pen pals, you know, because like I said, he's all the way over there in England. But yeah, so between him, a friend of ours, she lives in Canada, where we just share pictures amongst each other, and, you know, like your social media besties. And you develop relationships with people that you have in common. And it's so much fun, because, you know, it's like, well, we talk, we like just joke, and there's all this, you know, like nerdy stuff, and, you know, we all share our woes together. And, you know, and so when one of us loses a part of our fur family, it can be devastating. And he is absolutely heartbroken. And I have to say, I finally found the TikTok page, and again, it's the Grieving Gardener. He was talking to me and asking me, he's like, I don't know how you do it. And it's just like, you know what? My cousin told me, just talk like you're talking to a friend. And he's not quite there yet, but his videos are beautiful. And they're really, you can tell the love and the tribute that's coming out of it to Poppy. And cutest little thing. You got to go check out these videos, because she is just adorable. But she just loved him so much. You know, they were each other's ride or die. And, you know, even though we come into being a pet parent with the understanding that we are going to have a limited amount of time with these delightful little, you know, hearts. I mean, really, they're like hearts with legs. They're just so much love and you know, just compassion and empathy, and there, it's just, you know, we obviously don't really speak the same languages, so there's just this emotional tie to them, this feeling, this, you know, this bond that you have with them. And when we lose them, it's devastating, especially when, you know, I mean, in the sense of like an emotional support dog, right? Or an emotional support pet. And you see some people with them, and I mean, it could be any kind of pet, right? I mean, some people have very exotic pets as their emotional support pets. And it's because there's just something in them that needs that. And I mean, I would honestly say, even unofficially, if you have a good relationship with your pet, they are literally your emotional support pet. Okay? Because whether it's official through the channels of, you know, whatever channels you have to go through to make them official so they can wear that vest and that badge, or even if you don't. Because they're there when you get there, they're there when you get home. They run after you when you leave. And it's just kind of like, I mean, case in point, you know, I've been here helping my dad out for quite a while now, a lot longer than I think either of us expected me to be here. And every time I go home and I get to see Pixel, she just runs to the door, and then she just meows at me like, where the hell have you been? I mean, she's a sassy cat. She can be a bit cranky, a little bitchy sometimes, But it's always, and then when I leave, I'm going to get emotional again. Then when I leave, her eyes just get so big and sad. And if I were to say that to someone who doesn't have a pet or a fur baby, they'd be like, oh, that's just them. But I can see it in her face. Like, where are you going? And, I remember I just went out last time I was home to get something to eat for sibling and I. And she just looked at me. And then when I came back, she just looked so relieved, like, oh, okay, there you are. And at first I thought, I told her sibling, I said, is it just me? And she's like, no, it's not just you. She has that look. She misses you. She lays on your bed. She goes into your room. She sits in front of your door wondering where you are. And it's just, and it hurts me because I love her so much. And I do. Sometimes I go through that weird thing when I first get a pet. Like, one day I'm going to have to let them go. An older sibling says, well, we'll worry about that when we come to that. Okay. Just don't worry about it right now. And it does, it hurts, and even if you don't have your own pet, like Muddy feeds the animals in her yard. And I know that when one of them doesn't show up one day, there's concern and there's worry, because we've talked about that. Like, oh, one of them didn't show up today. I'm a little worried. And, it was just a passing conversation one day, but it was enough to know that these are like her babies. These are her babies too. They're just free and roaming the world in her backyard. But what a gift, right? To have all these beautiful creatures just, to be backed into an area where they just come out and they trust you. Because these are technically what we would refer to as feral animals. These are animals that belong to nature and belong to themselves. But even though you're feeding them, they trust you enough to come out during the day to do that, or to just show up in your yard. Like, even if it's, 20 yards away, just say hi, it's a gift and it's special, and it shows a level of trust that people have, or that animals have in humans that they know are good people. And so I hope that all the people that sit there and, who kind of just brush off when someone has lost a pet, I hope that they've stayed on this long, and that they start to have a little bit more of an understanding of how devastating it is when we lose, our little four-legged friends, we call them pet friends, but I would say that the majority of the people out there, it's their baby. They're their babies. I love George. George is one of my babies, but he's more older sibling's cat than mine. He's always been very attached to her. She brought him home. But Pixel is always just kind of leaned into me. She leans into both the sibling and I, obviously, thank goodness, because I haven't been home. So I'm so grateful that she does have older sibling, and that's consistent in her life. And yeah, so Muddy and her possums. Oh my God, she sent me a video one day of her possums. So cute. So cute. And their little nibbles. I sent her a video yesterday of a hedgehog running through a house. And we didn't even she noticed it after she watched the video again. He had sandals on, but you could just hear this tippy-tappy going all the way across the floor. And it's like, other people see that video and they're just like, yeah, that's cute. But when you have a pet, when you have a fur baby, and even if you don't have your own fur baby, but you just love animals, you see that and you're just like, oh my God. Now I'm not saying that if you don't have a pet, you're not, you don't have feelings. Of course you have feelings. But if you're one of those people, and I'm not saying this in any malice or whatever, if you're one of those people who just don't understand why people get so sad when they lose their animals, or their fur babies, or their pet babies of any, part of the animal kingdom, and you don't understand why they're so sad, I want you to just step back and look at it as if it were a person. Even though we don't speak the same language, even though we know that the time will be limited, even though we know that, I don't know. I don't think I had a last thought on that. Like I said, my brain is still learning how to brain again after being sick. But But yeah, even if we don't speak the same language, and even if, like, we know, again, like I said, we know we have a limited amount of time, these are little creatures that bring so much love into our life. A lot of times we're there when they pass, whether it's, to put them down. And for people that think that's cruel, they actually put them to sleep first. And a lot of times it feels a lot easier. And I don't know, and I don't mean, I don't mean easy for us. I mean, it feels like it's a lot easier for them because they're struggling. And when Lily passed away in my arms, I just saw how much pain she was in that transitional phase. Just the moaning and the crying and the, just kind of losing control of all her bodily functions, which she did. And, and I was just holding her just like, and it hurt me because I thought, I wish I'd been here fast enough. Because I always thought it's always so sad to watch them being put down. But when I experienced this with her, holding her, and I thought, God, probably could have made this so much easier for her. So much easier for her. Because she was just hurting so much. Because, everything's shutting down. And I don't know, maybe that cry at the end was just her saying, bye, Mom, I'm out. But yeah, it's devastating. And a friend of mine sent a video to me the other day. And it was heartbreaking. And it's like, why are you sending me this? But at the same time, I was so grateful because it was, a lot of people have taught their cats how to talk with buttons. And this woman and her husband had a camera in the house to kind of watch to see if the cat would say anything. And it did. I think it was a she. She learned how to use everything. But she had said on their done now. And she was and then she let out this huge, just like moan, like I'm hurting moan. Like she was getting ready to move forward and her, she's like, we had to send the vet to the house, like ASAP. And the vet was like, yeah, she's ready to go. But she had said bye. But she had actually said bye. And it was just like, it was so profound to see how smart these animals are. And that the kitty cat was basically giving them a message, like, I'm out, I'm going, but goodbye. And which is tantamount to them saying, I love you, but it was just like, I'm done. Or, cause I think it said all done. And then like one of the other messages was bye. And it was just like, and sitting there just like in tears. Cause what a beautiful message to get from your pet, right? Cause people think animals are dumb. Animals aren't dumb. People think dogs are dumb. It's like, dogs aren't dumb. They're just smart enough to know how to get you on their good side. How to get treats. Same with cats, except cats are a little more demanding. They just look at you until it's like, you're like this, right? You're going to do this for me, right? But, so Sammy says, a good friend of mine years ago actually told me that she didn't understand why people got so upset over a loss of a pet. A few years later, she and her husband got some dogs. When the first one passed, she told me, now I understand. She said, I think animals are smarter than we are. I definitely think animals are smarter than we are. They're definitely more in tune to emotions than most humans are. I mean, come on, dolphins and elephants are two of the smartest animals on the planet, And I mean, they're part of the animal kingdom. I mean, hell, we hear about, like, oh, well, the dog from this movie died, and you're like, oh, because maybe you watched this movie like 1,000 times, or all the pet movies, right? Like, what was the one movie, Dog's Life? The one with Dennis Quaid, and I think they did 2 movies, like where 2 or 3, no, I think there was 2 movies. But in the first movie, the dog comes back, and you see all the different lives that this dog has had, and then he comes back to the guy who originally had him. But he's a different dog now, and then in the next movie, they show where the dog is just kind of passing, and it's just like, oh my God. And you're just like, what is happening? And people are like, it's just an animal, why are you crying? Because they're special. They're important. Just because we don't look the same just because we don't have the same language, just because they are in our lives for a very limited amount of time, does not mean that you cannot develop an unconditional, undying love for your fur baby, your pet baby, whatever, like I said, your pet baby across the board, wherever your little family member lands in the animal kingdom. And there was actually a stat that said that, like, I think 23% of people found the loss of their pet more devastating than losing a human. And maybe it's because we, so that says a lot, because, like I said, our fur babies, they add a certain level of joy to our lives that I don't think, we get from a lot of other places. When you're sad, they come over and they comfort you because they know. When you're hurting, they come over and they comfort you because they know. I was reading a few things about cats, and older sibling was like, I don't know why George always likes to be on my shoulder. And it's just because she gets a lot of scratches on her shoulder, but he likes to nuzzle right in here. And he'll do that to me too. But I was reading, and some of the cat experts said that a lot of times when they do that, it's because they sense your mental overwhelm. And so they just kind of nuzzle there to kind of just calm you down. And of course it's warm there, so, and George is getting older. He's 16 now, and, his mortality is really staring us in the face. So it's like, however long we can keep you alive from here on out, we're going to do it. But anyways, I think I've talked enough about this. Without going in circles. I'm sorry if it wasn't a little more mentally put together. I just, there really isn't a lot I can say on this subject. Then, other than if you're a person who doesn't have a pet, or a fur baby, or a pet baby, if you're a person who doesn't, but you know someone who does, don't minimize their pain. Please. I am begging you. Treat it like they have lost a family member in their family, because they have. It's devastating. It is devastating. It is heartbreaking and devastating to have this little creature run to you and come to you and chirp at you when you come home every day, or when you come home, and when you leave, they just kind of look at you like, where are you going now? Are you coming back? And there is just so much love in these little pet babies, so much love. And when you lose that, you lose a piece of yourself. And maybe you get that piece back eventually, but they're always gonna, the way I like to look at it is, I don't look at it as losing a piece of my heart. I look at it as there's a damaged piece of the emotional part of my heart that will heal with like a little Band-Aid with their name on it, on my heart. Because after a while, after the grief passes, I'm so sorry, I'm getting emotional. After the grief passes and you are able to look back, you see how much beauty and how much love these little creatures bring into your life. How amazing they are. How, when you stop looking at them as just a creature from the animal kingdom, and you start looking at them as part of your family, how magnificent their presence is in your life. How beautiful this time you had with them really is. Even when it's so devastating when you lose them, and the grief just feels like it's not going to go away. I still feel sad over all the fur babies, over all the Canterbury tales that we've lost over the years, and they all lived pretty good lives. The only one that didn't really get to live a long life was Lucas. And he was a gift, a Christmas present from my parents to older sibling, which is why she named him Lucas, which I have to tell you was weird, living in a house with a cat with a first name that is your own last name. But otherwise, even that short amount of time, it was devastating, but it was just, and I was lucky. I was fortunate to to work with people who had had pets and at least understood, at least the person that I answered to at the time, they understood. And they, they were just like, no, I totally get it. Because they had lost their little pet babies over the years. So if you have made it this far and you still don't understand why we get so emotional over these things, I'm not sure I can explain it to you, but I do want to say this. Oh, Sammy says, I can't watch movies where the dog dies. You know what? Excuse me. A Dog's Life was good because he kept coming back. It was a very well done movie, and it was, it was devastating because every time you watch this dog go through one of its lives, you're like, oh my God, and you start feeling for the family. But it was a really good movie because I told older sibling, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to watch this because, this dog, I know what's going to happen and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, just watch it. And so, it hurts, but at the same time, they're good deaths. All right. They're good deaths. And I say deaths because, again, this is the life cycle of a dog, one dog, and, it was really good. I mean, if you don't want to watch the second one, don't, but watch the first one, because the first one is when they, I kind of gave away the whole plot and everything, but, it was good. It was good. But, yeah, again, if, like I said, on the emotional impact, 57% of people feel they had to hide their grief. We need to make that 0. All right. We need to normalize pet baby deaths. We need to normalize the mourning of something and this precious creature that just brought so much love and joy into our lives, that brought so much feeling and, the way they, in their own way, empower you and give you hope and give you community. Animals won't love you if they don't trust you. And sometimes it might take them a little while to warm up. Cats can be indifferent. I think Pixel can be indifferent from time to time, but the very first day that she came back with older sibling and I, she'd been in the shelter for 2 years. And we went there specifically for her. And some of the people were like, well, are you sure you don't want to look at a different one and blah, 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 because she was just kind of, I think she'd been picked up and put down so many times that she was just kind of like, whatever. Because I went to pet her, sibling went to pet her, and then she got up and just walked to the screen door where she looked out. And I think she just probably figured, no, these people aren't going to take me home. But we did. And that first night she slept with older sibling, and, I think she knew that she had found her forever home. I even had somebody reach out to me saying, oh, I really wanted her and I was going to come back for her. And they're like, would you consider? No, because you left her there. Okay. I'm not going to give her to somebody after we fell in love with her instantly. She's sassy, but we fell in love with her instantly. But, oh, Muddy, that's so sweet. Muddy says, I often send sympathy cards to friends when I know they've lost a pet. That's beautiful. And see, I love that. I love that. Just, even if you don't understand it, guys, just show compassion. All right. Just show compassion, show some empathy, because your person is hurting. Your person is devastated. My friend is devastated over the loss of Poppy, and I am devastated for him. And that's why he created the channel, The Grieving Gardener, on TikTok, because he's going to transform his garden kind of for her, but also to help him move through his grief. And he's sharing that. And this is one more thing I wanted to share that I almost forgot. And I know this is getting kind of long, but I promise. I saw some of the comments on some of his videos, and I have to tell you, they're beautiful in the sense that I think the 57% of people that felt they had to hide their grief, they found a community in his videos where they can share the loss of their pet, or I understand because I lost my so-and-so, or I understand because, my baby's sick, my little fur baby's sick, or my pet baby's sick. And it's almost like, each video allows for a sense of community amongst people who may feel like they can't share their grief with another human being. unless it's a pet person, you know, and I don't think it should be that way. You wouldn't push someone away who has lost a human. We don't push people away when they've lost a job. We try to talk them through it. Or when they've lost a relationship, we try to talk them through it. But when it comes to pets, we just kind of like, yeah, well, you know, no. It is legitimate grieving. It is the loss of a life that touched this person's life and probably many other people's lives. I never met Poppy. I never knew her. But the pictures I would see of her, it's just like, oh my God, I'm in love already. She's just so cute. And you could tell, even though they were just pictures, the amount of personality that she has. So when I see the videos and I get to see her personality, it's like, that is exactly what I thought she would be like. Just this spunky, cute, well, I know that means something different in England, but just this energetic, beautiful energy that graced my friend's life for 15 years. And that's a long time. That's a long time to become attached and to fall in love with this little creature. This little bundle of love. Or big bundle of love, depending on the size. But, you know, but it's devastating for people. And we need to normalize the grief of losing a pet. And I say pet like this because to me, they're just our pet babies. They're just our babies, you know? I mean, I just remember saying, oh yeah, it's like, oh, I miss my baby at home. People are like, you have kids? It's like, no, it's my cat. Sorry to disappoint, but no. It's just my cat. But it's not just my cat. You know, they are family. And that's all I can really say on that. They are our family. They're bundles of little unconditional love that we get for, again, a very limited amount of time. And it hurts. It is heartbreaking when we lose them. So anyways, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll be back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas. You can find me on YouTube and TikTok and across the social media board, except Instagram, because for some reason I can't upload there. But whatever. Anyways, so yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. And again, this video is dedicated to my friend Matthew and his sweet Poppy. And, you know, I hope that she is running free. I hope she is able to visit him to help comfort him while he mourns her, while he grieves for her. And yeah, and my heart goes out to him and her, but my heart goes out to him. And, you know, Sammy says, I've used the word pet more today than I have in ages. I usually call them babies too. Yeah, they are. They're just, even the animals, right? Even the wild animals out there, like they're all your, I call them your babies. I do. An older sibling and I are talking. I said, oh yeah, it's like Sammy's babies came to visit her today and she sent a picture. Just like, you know, even, Bestie Troy has fish. Well, they're his water babies. So, but yeah, have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Muddy, thank you for popping on. I let older siblings sleep today, so that's why the usual party chat was just me and Muddy today. But she hasn't been sleeping well, so I didn't want to force her to watch. So anyways, again, have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.